Yeah. Welcome. We have some special guests here at our shir. Maybe we'll have a question from them or a comment. Maybe it'll help us understand some things that we don't easily understand. But we're continuing with Ein Yakov Eiruvin. Till now we were discussing a very interesting concept about Beis Hillel and Beis Shammai. In general, we know that they had many arguments, and these were arguments l'shem shamayim, for the sake of heaven, meaning they argued about different things in halacha, in Jewish law, what's correct and what's not. It wasn't an ego type of argument. They really wanted to make sure that people know what's the right way to behave in regards to certain mitzvahs. A classical example of that is lighting menorah. According to Beis Hillel, you start with one candle the first night, then you do two the second, and so on until you get to the end of Hanukkah and you have a full menorah lit, right? And Beis Shammai says the other way around. Huh? Yeah, you start with 8 and then you go down 7, 6, 5. The Rebbe says that Hanukkah is Rosh Tevis, Ches Neres v'Halacha k'Beis Hillel. That halacha is like Beis Hillel, that you do, you start with 1, then you keep going. But their argument was not just, hey, I'm right, you're wrong, but it was, we have to make sure that people do it the right way. They meant it for the right reasons. You find that some of these great arguments between Tanoim or Amoraim, it was such a special type of argument that it didn't, God forbid, become enemies in the process. They would go to each other's houses and eat at their Shabbos tables or weekday tables. Their children would marry each other very good. And they did, They did,
It's not only Hillel, it's also the students.
Correct, yeah. Also their students. They even made shidduchim, marriages between their children with each other. Well, they weren't in a fight. However, who's right? Beis Shammai said, our opinion is the correct way. And Beis Hillel said, our opinion is the correct way. Now, generally speaking, we go according to Beis Hillel because Beis Hillel had more than Beis Shammai. Meaning, because majority rules, that's the rule. Majority, we always go according to majority, with all things being equal. Obviously, if one is wrong, then it doesn't matter if it's majority. You don't follow majority if they're wrong. If it's the wrong thing to do, you don't say, hey, everyone's doing it, so I'll do it, right? However, you do go according to the majority if both sides, so to speak, are valid. The thought to go according to Beis Shammai, even though he's not the majority, is because Beis Shammai was sharper. They were charif yeser. They were sharper in their learning, and therefore we go according to. The thought is to go according to Beis Shammai. But a Baskel came out and said, "Elu va'elu divrei Elokim chayim," these and these, which means Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel are words of the living Eibishter. It's not that one is wrong. However, halacha is like Beis Hillel. Okay. Then the Gemara had a question: why were they zeicha that Beis Hillel got this specialty that halacha is like them? It's a very big thing. What? Why?
Because the left and right.
Yeah, Beis Hillel, very good. That's regarding Hanukkah. However,
Because Beis Shammai was from the left, which is more lenient. I mean, Beis Hillel was from the right, so they're more lenient, and Beis Shammai was more strict. So
very good, excellent. Like we looked at in the introduction to Tanya, but that's why they're more lenient. It doesn't mean that the halacha is going to be like them. Maybe we should take the more strict approach. And one of the answers that the Gemara tells us is, and this is a very powerful lesson, because they were very humble and they were patient. And not only were they friendly on the outside, which many people could be very friendly on the outside, but inside they're very upset, angry, and they may even explode. At some point they get very upset. You can't talk from Mark. So because Beis Hillel had that patience in the way that they reacted and interacted with Beis Shammai, even when they shared the argument, they would first say Beis Shammai's opinion, then their own. That's how much respect they had. They disagreed with them. They themselves had a different opinion, and they hoped that people will follow their opinion because they really felt that was the right one. But they first said Beis Shammai. If you're arguing with somebody else, do you think you're going to mention their opinion altogether? If you disagree, and for sure, are you going to say it first? You're not going to do that. Well, maybe you would. But because of this behavior that they had, and they were so humble that they cared in such a way and were respectful, therefore they get this special zchus. That halacha is like Beis Hillel. We now continue a new piece of Gemara, where the Gemara tells us as follows. Tanu Rabbana, Shtei shanim umechza nechleku Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel. We learned in a brayso that for 2 years, Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel were arguing about the following discussion. Each one had another opinion of how this should be done, about the following statement. One opinion said, it's better that a person should not have been born or not have been created, better than being created. Okay, so Beis Shammai said, you know what? It's actually better that a person would never be created. And the Halalu Emrim and Hillel argued back and said, no. It's better that the person would be born, created, rather than not created at all. What do they mean exactly? What do they mean? The question is like this. When a person is born, we don't know how they're going to behave and what's going to be. And if the person is going to do Averis, he's going to make the wrong choices and transgress prohibitions, do things he's not allowed to do. Not only is he not going to get his portion in Gan Eden when Mashiach comes, when he passes away after 120 years, but he may actually end up in Gehenna, known as purgatory or hell, which by the way is a temporary stage. It's not a doomed thing forever. But regardless, the neshama may end up in a place that is not pleasant. So maybe it's better they shouldn't be born at all, shouldn't be created at all, and this way they won't mess up. At least they have Gan Eden, right? And Beis Hillel said, no, it's much better that they will. Very good. Why? Because in this world you could do mitzvahs, and when you do mitzvahs, you get rewarded. So you're kind of acquiring more of your klina, more of a portion in Gan Eden and Elam Haba, in the world to come, in paradise, because you are doing mitzvahs. So it's worth it because of the chance that you get to do. So what's the conclusion? Nimnu v'gamru. So they finally came to counting, and they counted how many mitzvahs are there and how many positive mitzvahs are there, mitzvahs aseh, and how many leis aseh are there. And there are how many mitzvahs aseh? 248. And how many, that's the positive mitzvahs, the dues, what you have to fulfill.
464.
And then there's the leis aseh, the things that you're not allowed to do. 365, close. So 365 Avedas. So therefore, what's better? To be born and get to do 248 mitzvahs? Or not to be born because you may make a mistake and mess up 365? There's more potential to mess up because there's more Avedas. They said, it's better he should not have been born over being born. However, the achshav shenivra, but now that he was created, the fact is that we're here, Baruch Hashem, right? Yefashfesh b'maisav, a person should search in his maisim, meaning find mitzvahs aseh and do them. It's not enough that you don't mess up averos, but you also have to go and search out for opportunities, potentials to do mitzvahs aseh. And so basically they're saying like this, yes, better he shouldn't have been born because of the risk. However, now that you're already here, let's use it out, search out opportunities to do mitzvahs. Yeah.
What's Shammai saying that? Because Shammai is a person.
Why was he saying that?
He's saying that because he's alive.
No, he wants to be alive. He's not saying he shouldn't be alive. He's saying, is it better for the person not to be created in the first place? Then he doesn't have a chance to mess up, and everything is fine. But on the other hand, Beis Hillel said, no, it's better he should be created, because whatever he is before he comes into this world, he could be greater and do mitzvahs and get more schar. Yeah, so that would be better. But Amrillah and other people say Yimashmesh b'masav. Yimashmesh means touch it, feel it, think about it. When you have a chance to do a mitzvah, don't say, oh, I don't have time, it's too expensive, it's inconvenient. Realize that there's such a chance, an opportunity, an ability that we have to do a mitzvah, we should go and do it. You want to come in the screen? In the frame? Come, it's called the frame. Come in the frame. There you go. Wave, tell the whole audience. Thousands of people. You can also tell them, don't forget to subscribe. Push the button on the bottom. Okay. And a side note, we know that Chassidus tells us that when a person, a Neshama, comes down into this world, it's in order to be able to reach a greater level than before. It's called Yerida Tzerech Aliyah. The descent is in order to have an ascent. Just like when a person jumps, he bends his knees to go up. You're going lower in order to go.
You go lower, and then once you go lower, you have more power.
Yeah, you have to speak clearly so people can understand what you're saying. Very good. Okay. Tani Rabbi Chia. Rabbi Chia learned, Yam she'asa Shleimah, the yam that Shleimah HaMelech made. When Shleimah HaMelech made when Shleimah HaMelech made the Beis HaMikdash, he made a yam. It's quote unquote a sea, but he basically made a very big pool. What? Very good, very fancy pool. In order that the Kohanim who became Tamei should be able to go to the mikvah. Instead of having to go figure out where to go, is it clean and is it available and is it unlocked? He made a Beis HaMikdash, and he also made a mikvah for people to go and be able to tovel. Now we know that Kohanim, it's not like today where almost everyone is tamei, almost everyone is impure from Tumas Meis. If you ever went to a cemetery and so on, and you have certain impurities that's on you and you can't get rid of it until Mashiach comes. Back then, they had a lot of tumas. If they touched an insect, or if they various different ways it could have become tamei. And in order to go into the Beis HaMikdash and to serve in the Beis HaMikdash, they have to go to the mikvah. So he made a tremendous pool for the Kohanim to tovel. Now, he put these on 12 images of cattle, of animals. It was like a statue, I guess, of animals. And the legs of these animals were hollow, and the Kohanim would come under it and go into the pool. Okay?
What was the animal?
It was just an image of an animal, like shape of an animal.
Was it actually hollow?
Okay, let's see. Mechte mikvah kama have. Now, first we say that you know how big this was? In machzik 150 mikvah tara. It was able to hold in it 150 mikvahs. How big is a mikvah? Minimum amount of mikvah. 40 so. Okay. Mechte, let's see, mikvah kama have. How much was the mikvah? Tzarbayim so. How do you know that a mikvah has to be 40 so? Kidetanya, we learned in the Brayso, v'rachatz es b'sarei b'mayim. The pasuk says 4 words. You should wash, v'rachatz, he'll wash, es b'sarei, and his flesh, b'mayim, and water. Now, obviously, it's in water, right? Where else do you wash it? In juice.
Yeah.
So it's going to be in water. And what do you wash?
Your body.
Yeah. So, well, obviously, there's some words here that are coming to teach us something. So we learn. B'mayim, b'may mikvah. In water means waters of a mikvah, not just any water. Kol b'sarai, all your flesh means mayim shekol gufay eila bahen. Your whole body has to be able to go into that water. It has to be a measurement, right? The chamahin. How much water do you need that it should be kosher for mikvah? So Chachamim say, Amma al Amma, Berum Shalish Ames, an Amma and an Amma, with in the span of 3 Ames. That's the distance that a person takes up. So 3 Ames is, every Amma is 1.5 feet.
3 amas is.
So it's 4.5 feet. What? 4.5 feet, right? And right, because 1 amma is 4.5, 2 ammas is 3 feet, and yeah, 4.5 feet. And it has to be an amma on an amma. So a person could 1.5 by 1.5, and the height is 4.5 feet. That's enough for a person to be fully immersed in it, to crouch down a little bit, like you do in a mikveh, you go like this. But it's enough. The Shiru Chachamim, and the Chachamim, they measured, they estimated how much water could you put into a span of 1.5 by 3, 40 sa. And that's how we got to 40 sa of water. We learned in the Brayso, a camp that goes out to a war of rishus, meaning there's two types of wars. Guys, there's two types of wars. There's a war of mitzvah, where you have to go to defend the Yidden, and you don't have a choice about it. Everyone used to go to such a war. And then you have a war that is, it's a rishus, it's optional. The king could decide that he wants it to be done. The Yidden could say it's a good idea. It doesn't mean that it's a required war because you have no choice. You have to defend against the Yidden. Now, when someone goes to such a war, mutarim begezel eitzim yeveshim.
Optional war?
Optional, yeah. They're allowed to steal dry wood. What's dry wood? The owners, they would chop wood down. This is before they had ovens or thermostats. They push a button. They had ovens before they had heaters. And your house gets warm. You had to have wood. So I guess every house had a bunch of dried out wood outside the house, so that when they run out of firewood, they could put more in and keep the fire going. And so we say that's something which they're allowed to take. It's not called gezel. And for sure, Rashi says even for sure wet wood is for sure not gezel because they can't use it for heating up anything.
They could dry it.
Yeah, but you hear them also not only if they're going to war, but anywhere that they're resting, they could. Sorry, not only could they take these woods, but when they travel somewhere and they have to park, it's an expression. You have to stop, right? To camp somewhere, you could camp anywhere. Normally, you can't just pull up to someone else's driveway and just sleep there for the night. It's not your property. But if you're going to war, then they could stop anywhere. It's not called stealing. What?
That's the law in Russia.
It's actually the law in Russia?
Yeah, no, please, that's the law.
Yeah, it's true. So you could stop wherever you want and just park over there. Guys, you're making it hard for people to hear. And if somebody was killed, even if it's in someone's private property, it's during a war, that place where he was killed, he gets buried over there, and the owner can't say, sorry, it's my driveway, or it's my private property. Wherever it is, he gets buried there.
What do you do with the guy in the war?
We're talking about in Eretz Yisrael when they didn't have, when they didn't have the control or the power over it. Yeah.
Say, yeah, for the government.
Now, regarding this that we just said, mutarim begezel eitzim yeveshim, they're allowed to steal dry wood, and it's not considered to be stealing. Hai takanta de Yeshua hava. This was a enactment of the Takana from Yeshua. The Amar Mar, because Mar said we learned that Sarah Tinoim Hisna Yeshua. Yeshua made 10 conditions. Shiumarim mecharashim. They're able to pasture their animals in forests of his friend. And if he has a forest, and the forest is not here to harvest, it's just a wild place, and you have an animal and you want to take the animal to be to pasture there, you could. There's no problem. And they're allowed to gather wood from someone else's field, and it's not considered to be gezel.
Who is? To be a war?
Yeah, in other words, if Yeshua said this, it's not even about war. It's in any situation. He made certain takanis, and one of them was, that if it's a forest, just because you own it, a person can still take his animal to run through it and take stuff.
That's not
Or
bad.
gather wood is not a problem.
About chopping down.
Hmm?
Chopping down.
No, you can't chop down. You could gather stuff that fell down. There's a storm, and the forest is full of pieces of trees, and you could just go there and take it. You can't say you can't. It's not considered stealing. Yeah. So what's the difference between this and wartime? Yeshua said you could take any time you want to take wood. You can take wood. So he says Hassan behizmei vehigi. Over there, he's talking about little twigs that are considered to be negligible. No one cares about them. But during wartime, you could take any, even good wood. It's stacked up. The guy has it for his oven. You're allowed to take it. Or you could also say, over there it's talking about wood that's attached, and here it's talking about wood that's already cut off. Inami. Or you could say, over there talking about wet wood. That's when Yeshua said anyone could take it, because you can't really easily use it. And here we're talking about dry wood. They could park anywhere, like we said, in the place where they were killed, that's where they get buried. This is obvious. Why do you say that they get buried? Why? Because meis mitzvah. It's a meis mitzvah. Meis mitzvah chenem b'kemei. L'chera, what's the chiddush? A meis mitzvah, someone that gets killed somewhere. The halacha is that
Because the people that are closest to the city have to bring around.
that's if you don't know who. That's
No good.
but they get buried in the place where they died.
So it's cemetery.
So why over here do you say that? Well,
What's cemetery?
but the answer is loy tzricha to have it. Afagad islay kavrin. Even in a case where you have people that want to bury him, it's not a meis mitzvah. There's relatives. There's when someone's going to take care of him. Still, in this context, because he was going to war, he could take the place where he was. It's a chiddush over meis mitzvah. Because if meis mitzvah, if there's people that could bury him, they know who he is, etc., they wouldn't do that. Okay. Another interesting halacha we have about people that go to war, they are potter from washing their hands. Abaye said, what are they exempt from? They're only exempt from washing mayim rishonim. Before a person eats bread, he has to wash his hands. So if they're at war and they're rushing and they don't have water with them, they're technically potter from washing their hands. But by machreinim, the water before you bench, that's a chayiv. You can't say, you don't have to if you're at war. Why did Chazal say that Mayim Achronim is a requirement as opposed to Mayim Rishonim that we kind of more lenient about? There is a certain thing called salt of Sdoim. And if Chas v'Shalom gets into the eyes, it could blind the eyes. And we're concerned for the sakana associated with it. When you have a big chunk of salt, there's a little bit of that melach sdoimis, the same salt in there, and it's dangerous. If you measured salt for the donkeys, do you also have to wash your hands afterwards? Technically, it's salt, the same reason. Very good, excellent. There's no question. Of course, you have to. When you eat bread with salt, you're careful, whatever. But if you're literally measuring, if you're just measuring, then if you're measuring them for sure, you have an issue because you're really interacting and touching the salt. Thank you for joining. Thanks to our special guests that are here today. I'll introduce you. This is Zalman. That is Yisraelik. And that's Beryl. Don't forget to subscribe. And I'm leaving.